I guess I'll quickly finish the story about about the secret government and what the Greys have done. A few years ago, we sent a satellite to Mars, which was probably the one that brought back the photographs that Face on Mars came on. And when it went by one of the moons, there's 2 moons going around Mars. When it went by one of the moons and it recorded photographs of this moon is so weird, it just defies all kinds of... they don't even know how it could do what it's doing. It's just skimming over the surface of Mars. Just skimming over the mountaintops, you might say, almost. Real fast. It's so low to the surface that if you were sitting at the North Pole of Mars, you couldn't see the moon. The moon would be down below the horizon going around the planet. So it's just barely off the surface, going really, really fast. They don't know, they've calculated how what it, according to its weight and everything else like that, it's impossible. The only calculations they could come up with is that it's hollow. This is the only thing that they could figure out. And so it's a weird moon. But then they saw some other weird things on it when it went by, and they found these cuts or lines. There's like slashes. This was the moon. Found these fangs all over it, and they are in a V shape from the side, and I think they're about I forget what they said, about 120 feet wide and 75 feet deep, something like that, and they run for long distance, real straight, and they're covered with some kind of inside the V is some kind of silvery, shiny substance. And so they don't know what they are. They've never seen anything like it. It falls into a new category of phenomena, and they recorded. They sent another one by recently. I guess this is in probably the early. I'm guessing here again, but earlier part of 1980, maybe a little later. I'm not sure. And they took photographs of the moon again. The only thing is that when they looked at one photograph of the old one that went by and the new one that went by, there were more of these lines that weren't there before, which is kind of impossible by everything we know, because there's no wind and there's no water and there's no air and there's no way for erosion to take place or anything else like that, and there's no way for them to be formed that we can conceive of. And so that sparked the interest of some people. And so Russia and the United States and England and France, and I think there might have been some other countries involved in there, sent 2 satellites up there to check this out. This was back, this is much newer now. This is, does anybody know when this was? It was 1990 maybe, or something like that? 89 or 90, somewhere around there. I'm not sure exactly when this was. I need to check my dates. And one of the satellites just disappeared. Don't know where it is. It's gone. Who knows? And the second one, though, reached the planet. And when it got to the Mars planet, it only had one video camera, and its video camera was locked into the surface of Mars. And when it came into the surface of Mars, it moved in between Mars and this low-flying moon. I really don't know how many miles it is between here, but it can't be a whole lot, considering you can't see it from the North or South Pole. So anyway, it moved in between the middle of it, and its next purpose was to rotate 180 degrees, lock on the surface of the moon, move up to within 100 yards of the moon, and start photographing these things. It's 6 square inches at a time. Now, considering that they can pick up the date of a dime from a satellite around the planet, that to be 100 yards away from something is like being there. So, I mean, they can get really good photographs blown up full size and just like stepping on there. And that was their intention, to look carefully at what this was and probably look in more ways than just light. There's other ways to look, other aspects of the electromagnetic spectrum and things to look at. And, however, it never got a chance because as it was looking down at the surface, let me get something here. This is written, Zecharia Sitchin wrote about this, but he's not the only one, and there's other people. I'd like to get these on a slide, actually, or a drawing. Two things happened very quickly. The first thing is that suddenly something appeared on the surface of the Earth. And what it was this. I don't know if you can see this or not, but it looks like a building. It's an installation on the surface of Mars. This camera's looking at the surface of Mars. You can see looks like a building and complex with a road coming in and this whole thing sitting directly below it. This is on page 281. And the very next thing that happened was, you see this elliptical shadow? A 16-mile-long elliptical shadow appears on the surface of Mars. Something between the Sun and Mars, but wasn't in the camera. This big thing comes into place, a shadow, and then something comes from whatever the thing that was causing the shadow, probably, and now we know for sure because of what just happened recently, and knocked out the satellite. And it was all on the last 6 frames. And this was all shown in Europe. And they re-showed it just recently, I've understood. And they've even showed the last 6 frames now, but for a long time they wouldn't let the last 6 frames out. The military wouldn't allow them out. All the military would say is there's something here, it's not supposed to be there. But they've now shown what I'm being told is they now have released that. And it shows this 21-mile-long cigar-shaped thing, I think it is, in the sky, with something that comes over and knocks out the satellite. This was the first time that the outer governments became absolutely clear that there really was life out there. Before that, they've never been able to get into the aspect of what the secret governments are running, secret government has been running. Like Barry Goldwater has been trying to get in the Blue Room. I think he tried 30 times, which is where a lot of this secret planning was done, and was never allowed in. He was a senator. And so the outer governments knew about stuff like, well, about to the level that we know about stuff, and maybe a little bit more, but they never had, I don't think they had any absolute, definite, hardcore proof, and now they did. And so, I guess this goes back earlier than that, now that I think about it, because when was Reagan's last year? 88? 88. This must have taken place right before, because Reagan was just in the last part of his term. Remember he made a statement about, to Gorbachev, what would we do if we were attacked by aliens? You know, and the papers kind of laughed about it. Ha ha ha. What would we do? Well, according to the Russians, when Gorbachev got back from that was supposed to be just a little statement that he passed off as a joke. Gorbachev talked about it to the Russians seriously for 2 hours. Seriously discussed it. What would they do? And there was a couple other times, or at least one other time, when Reagan talked about it also. And what had happened is they knew for certain that there was somebody out there, and that they were aggressive. They blew one of our satellites out of space. So as far as our governments was concerned, we were at war with whoever this was that was out there. And they came back, the United Nations came back, and made this whole document, which was not what to do if we ever find ET life or any of those other kinds of things, or not to do how to look for them or something like that. I don't know how to put this, but it was what to do when the world became aware that there was ET life. What do the world governments do? It was already a given that it had happened. Now they were trying to figure out what to do when the rest of us find out. Do they impose martial law, or what happens, or all these kind of things? They've worked out every detail of exactly what they're going to do when we find out. And there's even a law on the books in the United Nations that if any person in the United States, though they're not going to enforce it right now, but it's there when they have to, if anybody's approached by an ET, they must by law report it. Because they know this is real now, and so these are the kind they're thinking along these lines. This is why when Richard Hoagland was trying to push to get we've sent another satellite back there now, which is carefully going to map the entire surface again with cameras that are 50 times clearer than anything we've ever had before. So I mean, they can really get down there and see what's there. And those are on their way. They'll be there in August of this year. and now Richard Hoagland has been trying to get them to give them photographs of the face on Mars, and the United Nations and NASA has been trying to shut them up. They don't want us to have our focus on Mars. And they refused to give him, or even talk to him. When he gave his thing to NASA, they were not going to let him in there. Because I was just talking to Keith, right before he got that, I can't remember, Keith Morgan of ABC. I talked to him, he called me on the phone, and we were discussing this. And the United Nations was not going to allow Richard Hoagland to even present the information that he had about the face on Mars in the United Nations. And the only reason they did was because ABC said if they didn't, they would. And so when they found out that ABC was going to air what Richard said, then the United Nations agreed reluctantly to let him do that. And but now they've announced, and I've got the article here, that they're going to allow him to have the information, this photograph of the face, because to shut people up. And now it's getting to go back the other way. But the reason they don't want to do it is that's a military mission. It's a military mission. It's a reconnaissance mission. They're going to try to see what's really out there. Now, while that's going on, we've got to have a... Maybe I can just repeat it.
Well, I think did you mean
here it
the
is.
presentation you did to NASA or how?
Here it is.
I can't quite understand what you're saying there, because you mentioned that it was a military operation, but the United Nations didn't want him to present the material.
NASA did.
Oh, I think you said.
The very first one, a long time ago.
Yeah.
NASA didn't want him to talk. NASA didn't want him to talk at NASA, and it was ABC Television that forced that issue to take place, if Keith Morgan is correct. And, I said the United Nations, sorry. And so, this is so transparent what the world is doing right now. Let me turn this on just a moment. Just recently, over the last year, about a year ago or so, someone announced that there was going to be a comet. Oh, boy, got me. There was a comet coming in called Swift Turtle. Anybody heard of this? No? This comet is supposed to hit the Earth on August 14th, 2126, they think. That's what they suspect.
Turtle, you better be.
Well, on course for doom, maybe. This was the first announced in, I don't know when they did this, announced this about a year ago. And they have blown this thing way up. So, this is the actual photograph of Swift Turtle coming in a computer-enhanced photograph. October 22nd, I think, 1988. Or, 1992, probably. Or, no, maybe 91. I don't know. It's all getting to be a blur these days. But anyway, this is the actual photograph of it. And so they said this thing is going to come in, it may hit us in 2146 or whatever it is. And now they're saying, they don't think it will miss. It's not even going to hit us anymore. They're pretty sure that it's going to come close, but it's not going to hit us. And then there's all these articles that have been coming out. The next one came out. All this press stuff coming out showing how these comets have hit all over the Earth, asteroids, and here's a whole map of them. All these hits that have happened all over the Earth, and they're telling us that we're in real trouble, that we better prepare ourselves because we're going to get hit by another comet someday. And so the governments of the world are now, this is one of the latest article, this is in one of the science things of Time, I think. The governments of the world are now building, they're in the process of building a huge complex of missiles all over the world, spending a fortune. The missiles are designed to blow the comets out of space when this mythological comet comes along. The next one in 100 and something years from now. But they're going to get prepared right now. And they're really doing this. They're building these, they're going to build this whole complex of missiles all over the world, aimed out in all directions. And these are going to have atomic warheads and neutron bombs. Neutron bombs on them. Right in here. It talks all about it. How they decided that neutron bombs would be really good for deflecting these things. This is just a scam. I mean, what they're really doing is trying to prepare for war. For, the best that they can, because they know that somebody's out there. And they're scared to death.
But I thought they were the somebody.
No, we're talking about the outer governments now. Clinton. These guys. Not too far removed from you and me, really.
Does Clinton not really know about, Bush and Clinton, do they not really know about the secret government and all this stuff?
I think that they have a real good idea about it, but I don't know if they know what they know on all the levels.
And who did all the work for the secret government of building all these facilities?
Which facilities?
On Mars and the Moon?
Well, I don't know who this was. Mostly I think it was Russia, not the United States. I think these were primarily, since they were the 2,000 trips that came up off of Russia were Russian-based. They couldn't use us. We're too exposed, or whatever you want to say.
There was a video that came on in London about all the British scientists and European scientists that have disappeared from the same place, and I think
Alternative 3. Well, that's another example of what happened before the secret government became aware of the situation that we're in. At that time, they would eliminate anyone that tried to expose what was going on.
Well, I thought they were saying that those people had been taken up to Mars to work there.
Yeah, that's what they were.
Oh, all right. I did see part of that. I didn't get that out of it. Is that what they said they did? They took them up there? Oh, they just... You mean abducted? Abducted them?
Some of the scientists agree, but there are others who they abducted and they did some kind of brain work on their brains so that they don't have memory or recall, so they can program them, reprogram, and then send them out.
Yeah, there was a lot. They didn't even have to do those kind of things at this point. They got other things.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is, I think, if you just look into this deeper, you'll see this whole complex of the money and all the scientists and everything else that's going in, the incredible amount of energy that's about to be entered into this is just to, maybe I'm wrong. But, I mean, to spend the billions of dollars that they're talking about, the billions and billions of dollars for the possible comet that's going to come 150 years into the future is pretty silly, I think. And this is another one. I realized I didn't get the whole thing on here, are they? NASA has also put up a whole network now, powerful radio and telescope antennas, worldwide one that they're setting up, specifically to listen to see if there's any aliens out there. Very, very complex thing, specifically looking what's going on. UN will decide how to answer. This is the Palm Beach Post, but and then they're talking about certain Alpha Centauri and certain and they're talking, well, that's something else up in there. But anyway, they have a problem right now. They have a real problem because and I guess this is going to be real interesting. I mean, you should follow the satellite that's going to Mars and see what happens. And I'll bet you anything that those photographs are going to be censored. And we're probably not going to see anything that comes back from there, if it even does get any photographs. And and they may give Richard his one photograph of what he wants, but you're not going to get anything like you might expect.
Have you seen a current video of the new faces they found on Mars?
No.
I just...
Who's they?
I don't want to get into all the names.
What I'm saying is, how could they? Because there hasn't been these satellites.
Well, there's... I just came from one of those UFO conferences, and so boy, you go into one of those and you get all the proof you want. But it's just that the energy is so based on fear and anger. But there was...
Well, I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm just saying there hasn't been a satellite that's made it to Mars that I know of for some time.
I will get the information and get it to you.
Okay. I'm just going to show you some slides of where the Flower of Life has been found around the world and the information associated with it. And this is in Greece, in Crete. And you see the dolphins here and the Flower of Life information on the floor, the original petal from it. And this is in Ireland. I'm just going to show you places all over. This one's really good. This is a door plate, so a door handle goes through here. And you see the 13 circles of the fruit of life. And these three form a Star of David around these three with the Star of David in the middle. And then look carefully in here and you see the inner pattern of the Flower of Life. And more of these three all have the inner pattern of the Flower of Life inside of here. And it's a circle with two lines around it and all this stuff. It's pretty good. Anyway, that came out of Ireland. This came out of Turkey, the 6 days of Genesis. And it's not that. You actually not only see the 6 days of Genesis, You see this paddle of the 6 days of Genesis, and these two side by side. This is the inner 6 petals. This is the, where's that thing anyway? If you look at the central one, it's the inner 6 petals, and you'll see this over and over and over and over around the world. You'll see that one, and then right beside it, it'll show the inter one of the whole with these other 6 loops around it. These 6 loops here, and that's like the minimum amount of information. Those 3 patterns for the flower of life. And another place that you'll see those same 3 patterns all over is at the monastery of St. Catherine. When you go up to Sinai, where Moses found the burning bush and talked to God, there's a Coptic monastery there. And when I went in there, they won't let you take cameras in there, but it's all over the ceiling. We already know the Coptics were involved in this, but even in modern day time, they still have the information on the ceiling. This thing here is in the background was an image that we took off of a wooden box which is the seed of life. And the wooden box was found in Tibet, and inside it is the seed of life, and what was found inside of it was an instrument for planting seeds. And so if you're going to keep a seed planter in something, it would be very appropriate, especially if you knew what that image was. And this image here, which we took out of the flower of life, remember when we had that symbol and all that stuff, when you color it in, is the yin-yang of the Tao symbol. And again, though I only have not really got into it, the Tao Te Ching and the Yi Ching, and the 64 changes of the Yi Ching and all that information, which is one of the oldest books in the world, is all directly related to the flower of life. This is Masada, Israel, which is where the original 300 Egyptian members of the Egyptian mystery school of Akhenaten, after they'd risen to immortality in about approximately 500 BC, went to this place and formed their little city. And if you go into the center of this ruins to this ancient church, and into the middle of that church, and this is the floor of the center of their church. You can't see it here because this is a copy of a copy of a copy of a slide, but I did have the original in. This is the flower of life pattern. Most of the floor is gone. But this pattern right in here, if you can clearly see it, is very, very clearly the outer rim of the flower of life, showing that the Essene Brotherhood also knew what the flower of life was. But then, since the Coptics and the Essenes are both, from our point of view, coming from the same source, it's not too unusual. This is coming out of India, and the Call Mystery School went into India a long time ago, giving all the geometrical information from Atlantis, and the Sri Yantra, and all these kinds of things are all the geometrical patterns, like in here, of the 6 stars around one and everything, are all the geometrical patterns of this information. Their very temples are laid out into this information. Every stone is just like in Egypt. Those temples there are also equally involved in the same information. This is also Hindu. This is this is my drawing, but I copied it from a mandala. It's a Hindu mandala on Tantra. And when you look carefully, this is 2,000 years old. And when you look carefully at the information inside of here, somebody take this thing. I don't know if that's what's doing it or not. I'm not sure. You got these 7 triangles in here, but that purple, and of course you guys know now what that is, especially when you look at this thing. It's the star tetrahedral field. Now this is Tantra we're talking about. And they're discussing Tantra and simultaneously discussing conception. And remember, the egg turns into one of these things, the original 8 cells. And then it becomes a cube, which is the cubical nature of it. And they show the star tetrahedral field, and another way of depicting a cube on a flat field is 2 squares. And all of that is inside a round sphere with 2 lines going around it, the inner and outer surface. So they're showing this is the metaphysics inside of the ovum. And then out here you see 8 organic-looking cells that go to 16 organic-looking cells, showing that they knew about the binary sequence of the nature of life, which they weren't supposed to know 2,000 years ago. And then they also put a dot in every other one, which to me is showing that the original 8 remain unique unto themselves. And all of that goes back into a sphere, which the process does do. It goes from a sphere to these other forms in here and then back to a sphere. And behind here, you see the square that forms the phi ratio, giving you the ratio of life. And this is it's a remarkable piece of work, considering how ancient it is and what it's talking about. And this one here, I'm not going to let you see yet. I've been waiting so long. This one's great. Okay, if everybody will come up close. You get to see this one finally. You remember when we talked about Abydos, and in Abydos I said there would be something on that ceiling which would prove to you that the Egyptians could see the future. And this is, where is it? Okay, now watch it. Just look where I'm showing you first. Look down here. And you see this bee with a staff up in here? That's another symbol for the left eye of Horus, the emotional body. And you look up here, and you see the bee again, and you see the staff, and then over here you see an attack helicopter. And over here you see a tank facing back, and another airplane, and what appears similar to the AWACS, a sphere with an eagle looking over this way. The planes and the eagle are facing that way. The tank is facing back. And and these are like those Patriarch missile symbols, which are those square things. None of these symbols exist anywhere else in Egypt. Not these or anything. None of those hieroglyphics. And there's only one war where the airplane and the tank and the helicopter, all 3 of those things, was in use, in widespread use, and that was in Iraq.
The 6 Day?
The 6-Day War?
Israel?
Was that a tank war?
I don't know, man.
Yeah, there was a time when
Not in this
the helicopter and the jets weren't white.
But who is the eagle, though? That was an Israeli war.
It could signify the United States, the eagle.
Huh?
It could signify the United States.
Well, that's what I mean. Is if it was Israeli, they probably would have starved David there or something. No, in Vietnam there was really no tanks. It was a helicopter war, but
They didn't have that kind of helicopter.
that's true. This is a new helicopter. This is someone else who was in the military here, who was here once more, and he goes, "That's the brand new one." Really, he was blown away. That's the one that this is the one that they used in Iraq. And they get dirt, and so people came in and had to squeeze under things and stuff like that.
Doesn't it look like those two big guns that he's supposed to have? Are you interested in adding to your collection where
There's one more thing. This is very important. This slide's very important. Please read it. And it's a very important point of view. Okay, back to the Merkaba, which is this is about. This is closing the scroll of the right eye of Horus. And this is Machiavinda Melchizedek holding the Holy Grail, which is Machiavinda Melchizedek. He's the one that's been here for 200,000 years protecting us. Right, holding the Holy Grail, and which is the focus will soon be on England and the Holy Grail and what this is all about. And that's the end of the slides. Okay, I now got to switch to another time in history, not too far back, and I'm about to tell you something that is more outrageous than anything else I've said before. You're all ready, I can tell. And it was real hard for me to talk about it because I knew what was going on, but it was hard for me when they first told me to go tell 7.5 years ago. It was very hard to talk about this, and everybody sort of walked out going. And but when they started to create the grid 13,000 years ago, it was calculated that we would reach completion and be able to step through in approximately, and when I say approximately, they had it down to about 1 day, I think, approximately the winter of 1998, and that we would be able to move in during that time. And so everything was set up, and the sacred sites were created, and people all over the world in different races that were seemingly disconnected and had nothing to do with each other were working on this little grid, very much like this floor plan that's on the floor here. They were placing them in certain places all over the world, which affected and shaped this electromagnetic field outside the planet. And however, about 200 years ago, sometime in the 1700s, it became apparent to the father aspect of us, not the Anunnaki, I don't think, but the Sumerian aspect of us, that the grid may not be completed in time, and at least one person not make it through in time before something would happen. We needed just the grid completed and one person stepping through, which happened recently, 1989, but this needed to take place earlier than this. because there was something coming up that we needed to have this take place earlier. Not that the whole world had to make the translation, but there had to be, the grid just had to be completed, and we had to have at least one person living it. And so some point in the 1700s, it became apparent that we might not make it. And if we didn't make it by a certain time, and that time would have been approximately the winter of 1972, we would all die. We would really die. This planet we'd have to go somewhere else. We'd all migrate somewhere. We'd have to leave third dimensionally to somewhere else, and we wouldn't have a body. We wouldn't have bodies or have a planet. It would be not a real good situation. But the planet would no longer be usable as a starseed, maybe ever. And our daddy did not want this to happen. They really did not want to see us get hurt. But it looked like there was a very high probability that we wouldn't make it, because they knew what was going to happen. And so the Syrians began to make a serious investigation into the memory banks of the universe, looking for someone who had thought of a solution to our particular predicament. And what the result was, after checking all possible knowledge, was that there wasn't any solution. No one, in all cases that had all happened before, when a life form had gotten this close to making the change and didn't make it, the life form died. And there was no solution to the problem. And so it was probably a little disheartening for a while. However, they kept searching, and they found hidden deeply into ancient records, ancient times, so not even in this galaxy, somewhere else was the originator of all of this. So I'm not sure, but it could have been anywhere. A little tiny seed, a little possibility of a way that if we did fail and not make it through, that there might be a way. Somebody conceived of a very intricate way that under these specific circumstances, that life might be able to make it through. No one's ever done it, but it was a game plan. It was a possibility. And so the Syrians took the information from the ancient past, and they began to proceed as though we weren't going to make it, even though they didn't actually know if we were or we were not, because it was going to be so close. And so they began to proceed, and they made, you might say, the hardware and the software, and trained all the people and got everything ready to go. It took a while to do it, and they did it all. They made all their experiments, they studied, they did everything else, made sure that they had everything ready. And when they were all ready, they even had the ambassadors ready to go, everything that they would have needed. And then they waited. And in January of 1972, of the existing cultures that were coming in from other dimensional levels, of which there were approximately 80,000 at that time, they all reviewed the situation of Earth, and it was a very, let's just say, extremely heated debate over whether or not Earth would make it or not. And it was finally agreed upon by almost everybody that Earth did not stand a chance. Literally the words were, there was no hope. No life would make it through, not even a bug. Nothing, not even a bacteria, not anything would make it through. the situation that was about to develop in 1972. And so they left. They left us. They left us alone to die because there was nothing we could do. And with the exception of the Syrians, the Pleiadians, the Aldebarans, Arcturus, and about approximately 100 other cultures. Those are the ones we're familiar with, but there's a lot of other ones that are not quite so well known. Basically, it was the friends of the Syrians, people that knew what the Syrians were trying to do, though the whole body knew what they were trying to do, and stayed to give them support if they needed it. Now here was the situation that the Syrians were faced with. Now this is what was going on fourth dimensional levels, okay? We're going to be switching back and forth between what's going on in fourth dimensional levels and what was going on in third dimensional levels. On the third dimensional level, we talked about the pulsing that was coming off of the sun. I'm not sure if I even need to say that. There was these spiralings, these pulsings that were coming off the sun. When Suzuki wrote his paper, he said that. Excuse me. He said that they calculated there would be this enormous explosion on the sun on August, September, October, November of 1972. As it turned out, it was August 7th of 1972. And it was the biggest explosion in the history. In actual fact, it was the biggest explosion in the history of the Earth. In recorded fact, it was one of the biggest solar flare activities. This is all the data on it here. One of the biggest solar flare activities ever recorded. But it was much more than that. A bubble was formed in the sun that was 2/3 the size of the sun. And the sun was knocked off its axis. It will never quite be the same. And it actually shifted poles. A shifting of the axis of the sun took place, which inevitably means the shifting of the axis of the planets that go around it, because they confirmed to it. But they didn't really know what it meant. But at the moment that this was taking place, right prior to August 7th, we were approaching Jupiter in a satellite. And as we were approaching Jupiter, and it was on worldwide television, we were coming into Jupiter, and we were about to we were talking about it on TV and everything else, like, here we come, here we come. And they were telling people up there, well, we're about to go through a radiation belt, which is about 200 miles thick, and that when we went into the radiation belt, they wouldn't be able to transmit out to the other side. So they would go blank on the world screens until they got to the other side. At the very moment that we were approaching Jupiter, there was this enormous explosion on the sun, unparalleled, on certain levels, unparalleled in the history. And the solar wind got up to 2.5 million miles per hour, coming through like a tidal wave coming across the oceans. It would be like about a 400-foot tidal wave coming over the oceans. This would be about equivalent to it. And this tidal wave came in and just went right over Jupiter and just blew away the radiation belt, just blew it up. And so we transmitted as we went around. And in NASA, you can see these guys in there, they're going, oh, I guess we're transmitting. And they're going, holy cow. Because they know what's going on in the other ends. And out here they're being real comical. Oh, it looks like we're going to transmit as we go around. But this was a real pretty exciting time for those guys, because that was a really big, huge, enormous thing that took place.
Why didn't it blow the satellite out of there too?
No, it's not. It's little tiny fine particles that are being.
Just affected the radiation.
It won't affect physical things like that, but it did affect the radiation belt dramatically. It would pass. It was so powerful. It would pass. Probably a lot of it some of it would even pass through the Earth. I don't even know what. I'm not sure what. I'd have to do some research to find out what was in the, it's called the solar wind. And it dropped. It stayed that way for about 3 days, and it dropped down to about 1.5 million miles an hour for about a month, for about 30 days. And nobody on Earth really knew what it was because they'd never experienced anything like that before. And so, from August about 8th until a few months later, until June or July of 1973, you could go to any scientific journal, in fact to almost all the world's major cities' newspapers of the world, and they would discuss this thing that was going on or had happened on the Sun on August 7th. It really was about a week long, and it peaked on that day. And no one knew what it meant. All they knew was that it was extraordinary, and that most of the papers just gave the data on what it was. But from June or July, Suzuki called, who knew more about this than anyone else in the world, because he wrote the paper on it and he planned everything, and I had been working with him up until just prior to that. I left, I think it was in just right after the, I don't know when it was, maybe April or something of 1973. I was no longer with him, so I didn't go to this meeting. I had no knowledge of what happened in that meeting. But what I do know is that there is, from June or July of 1973, whoever was in that meeting, and it was most of the world's scientists, there has been an absolute, total, complete blackout of information. It's as though it never occurred. There's nothing. Only if you go back between the period of time of August 7th of 72 to June or July of 73, whenever that meeting was, will you be able to locate anything at all written on that subject. After that, across the entire planet, nothing, because they all knew that whatever it was big time. And Suzuki was telling him that it probably meant the beginning of the pole shift. And actually, Suzuki felt that after that, his calculations were, from everything else they had been calculating before that, was that we would never make it past 1984. And he's probably still scratching his head because he doesn't know what happened right prior to that time. You know, this on a fourth dimensional level, because he would have been right probably if other things didn't occur. Now, what was really about to occur was Suzuki. What he had really predicted was that this would be the biggest, most incredible, all-absorbing explosion ever seen, and we may not even make it alive past 1984. And he was much more right than he knows. So at the moment, he probably thought that he had made a mistake or something. Because what was really going on is that we are in a hydrogen sun. The fusion that's going on in the hydrogen is a hydrogen fusion reaction that's going on in the sun, and which is, like I said before, two hydrogen atoms coming together, fusing together, and making helium, which is the source of all the life in this room, and all the life on this planet, and all the light on this planet, and just that one reaction. And for about 5 billion years or so, the sun has been doing this. And what happens is when a sun reaches, when the helium has been building up and building up and building up inside of there, and when the helium reaches a certain level, you get another level of fusion, which is called helium reaction. And 3 helium atoms come together and form carbon, and you get another reaction. And what our science, which is too infant to understand, is that when that happens, this phenomena occurs. It's rather rapid. There's a pulsing of the sun when the helium ignites when it goes up to the next step. And that's what happened on August 7th, or leading up to it, right a few days before, and then it peaked on August 7th, was it ignited. And we had a helium reaction, which the original plans knew this was going to take place a long time ago. They wanted to have the crystalline grid in place prior to that time and have at least one Christ consciousness being come up, raise the ship up into the sky, and then our own intelligence and life force energy would be able to protect us through this. But that didn't happen. And so we weren't going to be able to protect ourselves, and without that protection we couldn't possibly survive, because the sun was going to expand right up past the earth for a short time. And it did. It went on right past us. I'm not sure how far. And we were inside of the sun. Remember what God said in the Bible. He destroyed the earth with water the last time. He says, I'll never do that again. Next time it'll be fire. And everybody says, how can the earth be destroyed by fire? Well, if you can imagine, and the suns expand all the time. When they die, they'll expand so much they'll go right out past the entire solar system and engulf it up and then come back in, and there's nothing left. But this is just a pulsing. In terms of the sun's life, it would just be like that. It would just be a second when the helium reaction takes place. And so they had to figure out some way to protect us. And again, so in January, when everybody said, "There's no way, nobody's going to survive this." This is what they meant by not even a bug is going to survive this one. And so they all left. As soon as they left, the Syrian ambassadors, which were all ready to go, went toward a particular area of space and met with what is called a galactic command. And this particular one is the one with 48 members. And asked the galactic command for permission to do the experiment. Galactic command by law had to ask certain things, and number one is they had to know for certain that there was no chance that any life whatsoever, any human life, would survive the situation. So it was the opinion of the 80,000 people that were there, almost all of them, that we would not survive. And because there was no hope, then they were given permission to do it, providing that the Syrians could demonstrate that or convince the galactic command that in so doing their experiment that someone would survive. So not only could be no one would make it through, which would allow them to be able to do this, but simultaneously they couldn't just do an experiment that they didn't think would really work. And so they had to demonstrate that they thought that it would work. And they were able to convince them. But however, when they asked them, how many people do you think will survive? This is the Syrians answering the galactic command. They said, we don't think that more than 2 will. We hope that 2 will. We don't think that more than 10 will. So all the people they thought would survive this. But and they answered from their heart. That's really what they believed. They had to. You can't lie to the galactic command. And so they really thought it would work, but they didn't think very many people would make it through. But if even 2 people made it through, then they're going to say yes, because that would mean that the whole thing would survive. And so, and would survive on the 3rd dimensional level. There had already been cultures that had taken humans off the 3rd dimensional level into 4th dimensional levels, etc., and things like this. But they wanted, it would be really good if someone could do it on their own, and or at least almost on their own. So anyway, they got permission to do it. Now what it was is this. Again, I'll have to put this over here. Now, to try to explain this to someone 7.5 years ago was pretty hard, even with what we had. These days, it's a little easier, and you can imagine if you had not ever seen this workshop before, to try to explain this 4 days ago would have been hard. You now probably are pretty familiar with the concept that there is a star tetrahedral field inscribed in the planet Earth. And however, though the United Nations, etc., are familiar or are now aware of that, there's a little bit more. There's 3 of them, like we said. But there's also a star, if you remember the fruit of life, there's a star within a star. So there's a star in the planet, but there's a bigger one that encloses the planet, where your planet would be way inside here, and these points would be way out in space. So the whole energy field, does everybody understand that? There's a bigger one way out there. There's another one with it, just encloses inside of it, and there's another one way out here. And so they went to these places, these little points out in space, which are the chakra points of the planet itself, that are in space, the same ones that we're dealing with out around here. And they placed 8 little tiny objects at each of those 8 places. They were they weren't very big. I don't remember, 12, 20 feet or so wide, and they were disc-shaped objects, robots. There was nobody on them. And they placed them on there one full overtone higher than that the Earth sits on, so that they were invisible to the Earth, but easily able to reach the Earth. And then they came out to the membrane of the Earth, which sits out at 440,000 miles away, which would be out there about where the wall is, somewhere over there. And maybe not quite that far. And they placed a very large object there, which was about 50 miles long and cigar-shaped, and it was black and it was seamless, and it had a transparent area on one end, and it was manned by about 350 members of the Syrian race, and they wore white uniforms and gold insignias, both male and female. And they were a specially trained race that knew how to operate this thing, which was really alive. It was a silicon carbon-based life form that had been created by the Syrians to cope with the kind of complexity that would be required to do what was that this experiment would need. From the dark end of the ship, not the transparent area, there was a beam that was shot down through the membrane of the Earth, down through across the 440,000 miles. And this was all fourth dimensional, over to either the top or the bottom. I really don't know which one it was. Either the north or the south pole of the Earth. The beam was approximately 6 or 7 inches in diameter, and it was a form of laser light that we have not got yet. It's little segments of, if you could stop the light, you would see it was little tiny segments of all these different colors. And so it's like multicolored, looked like they were stacked together and then moving at the speed of light. And they could hold immense amounts of information, absolutely immense. That was then shot down, let's just say to the North Pole for convenience, to this vehicle here, which translated that light into 3 primary colors, which were red, green, and blue, which are the primary colors of transmitted light, not red, yellow, and blue. And the red, green, and blue was then shot to 3 corners of here, from there again back over to these 3 corners, from these 3 corners, around the whole thing, and wrapped it back down to the opposite end where it came from whence it was reintegrated back into the beam and shot into the center of the Earth. And from the center of the Earth, by diffraction, it went out into billions and billions of beams out, little ones, straight out to there, which was directed at the human beings and certain animals of the planet. Coming in from underneath the human being it came into the bottom of the human grid and came out around the whole field out around here. And I don't exactly know how the interaction was around the human from into the center in there. I don't know how it was. What they were doing was they had two problems that they had to solve simultaneously. And that's what this experiment was to try to do. The first one was they had to protect us from this wall of flame. And so in order to do that, they created a very special field around the Earth that would be able to do so, and which extended from the fourth to the third dimension. That was number one. But number two, they not only had to protect us, but they had to hide it from us. Because if we saw it coming, just the shock alone would do us in. So they had to hide it from us, so we didn't know that we were being protected. And at the same time, you can see why this hadn't been done for so long. Same time that they had to hide it from us, they had to make us evolve very rapidly so that we could get from where we were to up a little bit further so that we could make this, because we weren't quite evolved fast enough. We almost made it. I mean, on a 13,000 years, we only missed it by, 26 years or something. So it was not bad. But we did need to go a little faster than what we were going. All those things had to be happening simultaneously. So what they did was, and I know this is going to sound outrageous, but I can't help it. They put this field around that protected us, and then they set up the only thing I could call it, if I have to give it a name, would be a holographic incubator. They set up a field around the Earth that put us into a separate reality for a period of time, and then protected us from ourselves, from the sun, and then at the same time, and got permission to do what I'm about to tell you. They took away our free will for about 2 years, because and only could have got that because we would have been totally wiped out anyway. It was kind of like if mommy and daddy came to into a kid and took all their, and they had knives or something in there and took them all away from them and said, sorry, you can't have these things right now. They took away our ability to choose for a short time, shot the field around us, which began to control the actual events in our lives. They did this from about, it took them only 30 days to totally get the thing running, and by the middle of February of 1972, we were in a separate reality. This continued until they had to make sure it was working. When they first got it working, they didn't do anything. They didn't take any free will away or nothing. They just got it working. And then got the program going on a program that would continue on as though nothing happened. They wanted to make sure it worked. But before the time when they knew the fusion reaction would take place, they then switched over and began experimenting. They got it to the place where finally they took away the free will, and they guided us very carefully over the next 2 years during this very crucial time. And what they did was they would keep giving you, or all of us, experiences in life that you might not normally have that would make you evolve as rapidly as possible. And so from about if I have to guess, I'd say May, June, or July, somewhere around in there of 1972, we went into a total artificial reality with no free will at all. And then after about 2 years, they gave the free will back because they didn't really want to do that. They had to. They gave us free will back, but they kept the programming going. And so they'd give choices to you, but if you didn't pick the right one, they would just keep coming back at you. Because they really kind of, no, go this way. No, go this way. No, they're not. They're not doing this anymore.
Around what date was that again? They were doing it?
They did that from about the summer of '72 to about the summer of '74, roughly.
So were they responsible for disco music?
It could be.
How did they save the other planets if the sun went beyond?
They weren't concerned about the other planets are fine.
How could it not affect them?
Because the other planets are alive, and they have very high levels of life on them. The only one that was a problem here was Earth. And all you need really is one. But if you've got two, then you're really together. If you've got two beings of at least Christ consciousness level, there's no problem. That's it. There's no problem for the entire planet. That's all it takes.
I mean, we didn't even have two here? Not even one?
Not that could do. No, we didn't. Not. We had ascended masters. They were looking for someone that had to be able to reach through and to take out the ship. I don't.
It had to be a woman.
Huh?
So it had to be female.
Well, it should be, but it didn't have to be. I don't really understand. This has come up before. I don't really understand what the linkage is between the ascended masters and the body on the earth and the relationship of that. I know that Thoth, who was one of the ascended masters, took the ship up before and said that he said he could never do it again. And so I don't understand that point fully, and I can't help you on that exactly. Why they needed someone new, someone out of this cycle. I don't know if this is because of the fall and that there was a separation. I don't understand. They were looking for someone of this cycle to be able to do it. Now, why? I don't know. I should be able to get that from the angels. I don't understand. It's come up before, but I don't know. I can't tell you. I'm sorry.
Is that form still out there?
It's still there right now, yes. They didn't know how long they were going to be able to do this. They needed to get us to a level of consciousness. They needed to get first of all, I know what part of the problem was. They didn't have the grid completed. The grid wasn't completed. And so it wasn't possible for us to make a transformation without the grid. And so it just simply wasn't done. It was almost done, but it wasn't done. And that was the primary thing that had to be completed. Yeah.
I remember listening to this story on your tape.
Yeah.
And just a couple of weeks ago on the show Sightings that's on Friday night,
yeah.
Japanese cinematographer shot a shadow on the moon that's a 50-mile-long lozenge shape that would correspond to the ship you're talking about.
Uh-huh. Well, that's about right. That would be, if it was 50 miles long, though, that ship would have to be awfully close to the moon.
No, the shadow wasn't. The scientists who looked at it said they calculated from the shadow how long the ship would be, and they said 50 miles. Oh,
I see. Well, this ship sits out at almost double the orbit of the moon, and and if there was a shadow from the sun, I'm not quite sure how that's possible from that ship, but
I don't know. It was a clear lozenge shape on the movies.
Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you. I don't think it's that. See, they put the ship outside the membrane and put it up on a fourth dimensional level, specifically so it would not be seen. And put it outside the membrane so it wouldn't even be sensed. That's why they had to put it so far away. And I don't think that that's what that is. That might be something else, but I don't think that's what it is. What? Yes.
Is it active in any way at this time?
Yes, I'm about to tell you what continued on. Let me tell you the rest of what happened. They accelerated it worked. They didn't even know if it was going to work. Had no idea. They accelerated the evolution. Now this is what started getting everything going. They accelerated our evolution synthetically. We just haven't stopped. We started going faster and faster and faster, and we started evolving extremely rapidly, and then everything just started taking off, and nobody expected this at all, and they got up to the place where, and each time, there were several times where they thought, well, there's no way they can hold this field any longer, and then just the whole earth and everything would be such that they would learn, the whole situation would become such that we could keep going, and we just keep going beyond all the places where we thought that it couldn't go any further, and it kept going up and going up and going up, and we kept going faster and faster and faster and faster, and we went past the place where we were going to make it or not make it. There wasn't any doubt about it anymore at one point whether we were going to make it or not. That wasn't even the issue anymore. The issue was, what's the speed that we're going at? This became the issue, is this evolutionary speed. It became extraordinary. And again, like I said before, we can't tell because we're inside the system. But relative to the rest of reality, we're in a synthetic environment now. And relative to the rest of the environment, we can't tell that we are moving at this blinding light speed relative to everything else. And so I remember at one point, even a long time ago, when Thoth said the Ascended Masters were just going, holy cow, what's going on here? And at one point I said, well, how fast is it? Because he was like, he says, in human terms, it would be like if you just had a baby, and you look down at the baby, and then suddenly, in 15 minutes, and when he says 15 minutes, he would calculate carefully that this was right. In 15 minutes, the baby becomes an adult right before your eyes. That's how fast we're moving, and how outrageous it is. It's outrageous. The level that we're moving at is outrageous to the rest of life. It's just simply outrageous. And at first, when we started moving this fast, we started attracting the attention of many nearby other races. All these guys that left, the 80,000 that left, they all came back and brought friends with them. And pretty soon there was lots and lots of other people coming back here. And then, like I said before, or I think I did, the first overtone, which is where they usually come into, totally filled up. You couldn't even get near the earth. It was just like totally filled up people. They went into the second overtone, and that's totally filled up. Keep going, we'll have to go into the third overtone even to be able to get more life here. It's just like you can't get any more life physically close to this place to watch it. It's ridiculous. And so we think there's just a few flying saucers out there. We got a zillion eyeballs on us right now. And it kept getting, and then we went intergalactic, not only interdimensional, but we went intergalactic. People from other galaxies, which is kind of unusual, started coming here, and even within the third dimensional level of life, started coming here and focusing on this place. And at this point, all life everywhere, all levels, all dimensions, everything, the entire focus of, you might say, Great Spirit. All life everywhere within the waveform universe, and maybe even outside the waveform universe, are focused on Earth and watching the extraordinary thing, because everybody knows and senses that this amazing, extraordinary thing that's happening on Earth is going to affect all life everywhere. We just know it. And this is what I meant by this little seed that God buried down in there. He created a situation where this was the only choice. It was the only one. There wasn't any other choice. It was the only one. And so the experiment was tried. It came from the Lucifer rebellion because it came from technology onto a Lucifer rebellion planet Earth. And now the thing seems to be coming up with the answer for both sides. So who am I to say? I don't know. But what appears to be happening now is that God appears to be entering into the situation. And God, I mean us on the other side of the experiment, the whole experiment outside of the waveform universe, seems to be interacting directly. Things are occurring here that just really are not natural. The grid that's around the Earth that was finally completed in 1989, that grid, which again is based on a dodecahedron, but far more integrated. It's a stellated dodecahedron, but there's much finer aspects to it, reflects the consciousness of that life form directly. And Christ consciousness usually evolves over a long period of time. In other words, it goes into one stage of unity consciousness, but there's many levels that continue up. There's stages of growth that continue up even from there. And you can always tell where it's at just by looking at the grid. So if you want to, what they're not really watching, the individual human so much as they're watching this geometrical image around the Earth. And it usually makes maybe a change every, well, maybe 1,000 years or maybe every 10,000 years or something like that. We're making changes in this thing hourly, and sometimes even sooner. Whole worldwide global changes are clicking on here. Just going click, 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 click. And so, whether you know it or believe it or not, we are in the midst of an extraordinary experiment here that all life is focused on. And I don't think that has ever occurred before either, though maybe it has. I don't believe that Melchizedek has any conscious memory of the entire waveform universe focusing its attention on a single point. Just to have that done. In January of 1992, another phenomenon took place. We reached a very high level of development based upon polarities, and the dark light, which had been more powerful on the Earth for at least the last 16,000 years, the light energy, or in other words, the amount of people that have connected into into the dodecahedral grid of Christ consciousness, became greater than those connected into the other grid. And when that happened, another milestone or transformation took place on the Earth, and the light became stronger. At which point we entered into another area where certain things were, for one thing, before I even explain that one, let's go back a little bit further. In August of 1990, go back a little bit further, back about 1988 or so, Thoth told me, that's when he was saying that we were going so doggone fast and all this stuff was happening. And the Ascended Masters were trying to figure out some way to respond to this rapid approach, because they were the only ones that were inside the system that could effectively deal with it. And so they could see from inside the system that we were going to reach this point of what's called critical mass. In other words, of about 5.5 billion people, when you reach approximately a level of, it's somewhere, I don't remember what they said exactly, but it's about 500 million people. when you reach a certain level, critical mass takes place. And what usually happens when that happens is the whole planet goes, everybody, the whole planet goes up to another level. It goes into unity. It goes into the certain specific unity of Christ consciousness. And so and I have this on tape as far back as about 1988. I think I even have it on video. Because he made me go out and say what I'm about to say, which at that time I thought was pretty outrageous. But he said that it looked like by the last week of August or the first week of September, I'm saying this 2 years earlier than the time, which would have been 1990, that in that 2-week period of time, we would reach, let me think a moment, just what he said. I can't remember exactly how he put it. I think what he said is we would reach critical mass in that time, and that then the next one coming up would be the window again that we referred to the times when I had to go into Egypt, which was January 10th to January 19th. And in that window, which is a special window when things can take place, they felt that we would we would reach critical mass back then. That's what it was. But in that window is when we would make the transformation, and that we would go into unity. At which point, during the window, they decided that if it looked like we were really going to do that, that they were going to leave in mass in one big blast of white light in a sphere. And the leaving, they felt, would pull us all up into this other level.
Who's they?
The Ascended Masters. They were all going to leave, all of them. They were all going to go on to a higher level in one big expanding sphere of light. From a third-dimensional way, it would be a way to look at it. And they were going to do that somewhere between January 10th and January 19th. And that by the spring of 1991, we would be in a whole other level of existence. But what happened? And they realized as we started to get closer and closer and closer, and we started to get up there, he goes, I don't know if we're going to do this or not. But look what happened at that time. And again, this was spoken on video at least 2 years earlier. Coming up to, in the last week of August, the entire world came together to declare war on one man, Saddam Hussein. One man stopped. We came short by one person. And then on January 15th, right in the middle of the window, the war began. We attacked. And which was supposed to be the time, instead of polarity, it was supposed to be the time when we would come together. They saw this right weeks before. They said, I don't think we're going to make it. And so they changed their plan. They held back. And they didn't do it. They held back and they waited. And they watched what happened. And then by the spring of 1991, we had reached another level in a way, but we did not, it was like a kind of a dud. We didn't quite make it. But we did reach critical mass. That's what's weird. That was what was really weird from higher levels, is that we reached it. We had 500 million people that were connected to the Christ consciousness grid. People who had opened their hearts and made changes in their beingness that in such a way that there are certain changes in their emotional, mental, physical, spiritual beingness that they would go through. They had made it. Though we hadn't lived it yet, they had reached that place. They had connected with the grid. They had made a commitment, you might say, within themselves to go into a new way of being. And it should, by all rights, take place. Didn't happen. And the numbers kept growing and growing and growing and growing, and way past critical mass, and everybody's sitting here going, well, don't know what it means, you know. All we know is that it's not happening, but it should happen, but it isn't happening. And then the critical mass grew so great that by January of 1992, this is what I started to say, more than half of the world had decided that they'd had it with the old way, and had decided in their hearts that they wanted to take a new path. And yet, we had not, it wasn't igniting, it was doing something totally different. It was like a growth pattern or something. And so, however, because we had reached more than halfway, in other words, the light was stronger than the dark, at that point, the Syrians decided that we should be given our power back because the light was now in control. And so the programming of the earth, in other words, how the events take place in the world, were given back to the earth. And so since January of 1972 and until now, what occurs on the planet is up to us. Completely up to us. Whatever we think and feel, if we could just understand the nature of the situation, if enough people could just understand the power that's there right now, it could be changed very, very rapidly, because it's really real. This is important to know something about the balance of power and the nature of the dark and the light. Remember, Jesus said something a long time ago. He said, "Resist not evil." And people interpreted that in all kinds of ways. My interpretation of that is that if you try to stop something that you think is evil, you give it power, you lend it strength, you help create that which it wants to create, though you may think that you're stopping it. And it's not the way. And a good example of that, which I love to use, is the one of the movie The Last Temptation of Christ. Because in that movie, that was just a grade B movie. That would have, they'd have got their money back on that one, they would have been lucky. But because the Christians decided that they didn't like that movie, they didn't listen to Jesus. And they resisted it like crazy. They went out there, "Don't see this movie." And everybody went and saw the movie because they told them not to. And if they hadn't have done that, the movie, if what they should have done, what Jesus was trying to say is, okay, you don't like something, great. Turn your back on it. Put it behind you. Put the evil behind you. And turn into the light and create that which you want to see happen. So if they really didn't like that movie, they should have said nothing and went out with all that money and all that energy and made their own movie the way they really wanted to show it. And that would have been a far more powerful statement. Instead, it lent power to the darkness. And that's the nature of the game. Whenever the light tries to stop the darkness, it makes the darker side stronger. But you see, now the roles have been switched. And the light is now stronger than the darkness. And it is the nature of the darkness to try to stop the light. And whenever the darkness tries to stop the light now, it lends power to the light. It's a different role because the balance of power is different. And you can see the very effects of this as the two polarities begin to build up by what happened in Russia, when the communists, the dark side, always tried to suppress the people, and it always worked. Until just recently, when they tried to suppress the people, and it just came right back at them, and was the very thing that caused the revolution in China, in Russia. The very people stood up and said, no, we're not going to do it anymore. And though it's not over with yet, and there's a lot going on, the very thing that would have normally worked didn't work. And so because we're in this unique flipped around situation, the Syrians and those that are working with this have opened up the whole thing, hoping that as we keep growing, we will all those that are connected to to another way of being where we love one another, that love will take over and will start guiding the events in the world. And the more the dark resists, the faster we would go. Okay, he's got an answer, a question over there. Maybe you got the answer.
We had this somewhat heated discussion the other day about technology and its dangers and the possible value during the transition period and its addicting nature and all of that. And here we have a case where very sophisticated technology is being used in an interventionary manner to assist revolution instead of to addict us further. Now, it could be argued that it's simply extraordinary and that within a duality-based universe, this kind of intervention is okay to kind of get ourselves out of the problem. But from the way you're describing it, it seems that races not even involved with the Lucifer Rebellion are interested because of the speed of evolution that it's facilitating. And so the question is, this is a question, is, to me that seems to validate the idea that if technology is approached in a balanced way, where the heart is used just as much as the mind, at least in this transition period, it might be appropriate in some forms.
Well, like I was trying to say in the beginning, I'm not going to say that doing that is wrong. It's just personally, for my own personal thing, I have chosen to go in a totally non-technical possibility way. There is an integration taking place, it appears, between the Luciferian technical side and the non-technical other aspect side. It appears to be that it is the Lucifer Rebellion and it is the technology of that which seems to be triggering this situation. And it is beyond anybody here or anyone anywhere. Everybody has to, I think the most important thing in all of this, and this is the real crux of it, is that a lot of the technology, like what the Greys had, there was no heart. There was no feelings or emotions. But and what you're implying here is that if technology could be used with a heart, with love, that there may be a way. And the Syrians appear to be demonstrating that. I mean, the Syrians are our father. We are deeply embedded in the Lucifer Rebellion. I mean, I'm sure Christians wouldn't even want to consider that. People who are, like born again Christians and things, that we could possibly be part of Lucifer. But we are in here. And I'm not trying to stop. Personally, I don't want to stop either one. I want to find this way between all of it in the whole thing. That there's got to be some kind of path that can satisfy the needs of those that have taken that path and those that have not. And more than anything, I'm just watching. I am teaching the Merkaba stuff because that was one of my instructions on how to do this. Because right now we're way out of balance, if you want to look at it that way. You have almost 100% of the people here totally involved in the Lucifer thing, and there's nobody balancing out the other side. We only have about less than 8,000 people that have taken the path of non-technological aspect, which we call the Ascended Masters. And I really don't know what the answer is. I don't know where it's going to lie. I'm just like a reporter here, just saying, this is what's going on. This is what I see, and I'm trying to be a reporter with heart, hoping that there will be some kind of way that we can all come out of this in a good way. And I really don't think that, these people that are prophesizing right now, I don't think there's anybody that knows where we're going. I don't think anybody at any level at all, except for God himself or herself, knows where this is taking us. But wherever it's taking us, we're getting there real quick. We're not going to have to wait a long time on this one, because this one is like, right now, tens of thousands of years are going by every day on Earth, though we don't know it. And it's really going fast. Yeah.
Do you have an idea of why these critical masses get reached and didn't ignite?
Not any. This is the first time since the beginning of creation this has ever taken place. So how can you ever... who knows?
Well, the feeling is that there's another part of the program that hasn't been revealed to us that is holding this critical mass ignition back, so that all of them
it's
can
kind of
go
like,
rather than just a few this time.
It appears to be moving more like cold fusion rather than hot fusion. It appears to be a slow reaction. It's a reaction, and it's moving like a reaction. It just isn't moving instead of a big... It's moving...
Growing.
Very strongly, very powerfully, very directively, continually, non-stop. No one's getting in the way of it, and it's just doing its thing, and it's never been seen before. That's all I can say.
These two overtones that are full of all the observers, they're looking at a Christ consciousness grid around the Earth. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. Right. That's what they're interested in. Yeah.
All right. My question is, like, are they apprehensive, or are they curious, or are their thoughts affecting us? And is there any chance that grid could be damaged?
There's a tremendous sense of joy. Because you see, for so long, in the last 4 times that someone has attempted to do this, the last one being Lucifer, in the first 3 times, anyway, there was no answer from God and from all life. I mean, it just everything fell apart. There was pain, and it was horrible, and there was just simply no answer, silence. And since Lucifer has done this one over the last 200,000 years, there's been no answer. It's been silence. And so the silent majority who's sitting there watching this is just going, when is God going to answer? And they were just going to wait to see what the answer was to this, because they wanted an answer to the situation. And now we're getting an answer.
So we're really working with 2 layers of support around our grid then.
What do you mean?
Well, those overtones, or the people you're saying that are all here watching us, their support.
Oh, yeah, they're cheering us on, for sure. Because they know that depending on what happens to us, they're going to follow right behind us. Because this is what everybody thinks is going to happen, It looks like whatever occurs there. It would be kind of like if you had a body and there was cancer in it, and suddenly an area in the cancer, and the cancer not being the black or the white side, but rather the situation, and suddenly a healing starts taking place. And everybody notices that there's this rapid healing taking place in a certain area. And it's really going very, very rapidly. So rapidly that it's extraordinary, never been seen before. And if the consciousness, the whole body's watching on it, the body's hoping that this situation will spread throughout and heal the whole situation. And so am I. I'm hoping too.
If the Syrians are the...
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't. You got to wave your hand, because all I can see is speakers.
If the Syrians are our father element, and they are the dolphins and stuff, and the dolphins learned how to do the Merkaba over 200 years ago, then could that be the element that's really keeping us together if there's so many of them in the ocean?
Wait a minute. You got an unusual situation with the dolphins and the whales. They have more than one kind of body form. On their planet, they have dolphins and whales and actually some other kinds of cetacean-type body forms, but they also have humanoid body forms. It is the dolphins, the ones in the water, have been able to extract themselves out of the technological side, but the ones on the land are still involved in the technological side of things. They're the ones that set this up. It wasn't the dolphins who set this up.
Well, I know it wasn't those who set it up. What my point was that since there's so many of them here,
Yeah.
and they are basically a higher race than we are because they're located on so many levels, couldn't it be them who are, at least in part, responsible for us getting so far?
Well, about all one race can do to another race is they can't, I mean, the dolphins can't interfere directly with us. If we're going to do it, we have to do it ourselves. All they've been doing with us is just being a perfect example and loving us like crazy and cheering us on. There has been a few times where they've tried to give us answers to things, you know, and stuff like this, when we've asked for answers. They were real involved with trying to get us to grow trees for a while and things like this, you know, because they were scared, you know, and worried about that kind of thing. But and the whales, which are even a much higher evolved than the dolphins, their interaction is even less. I mean, they're going to interfere even on a lesser level than the dolphins will, from my way of seeing. But they can support. I mean, they're doing everything they can to support us. They're not leaving. You know, where a lot of the races are leaving and going to the higher dimensional levels. They're staying here real strongly, and they'll probably stay here. Knowing them, they would probably stay till the last minute before they left.
Can you share with us, if you first came into a body, one life before this, were you aware, or your awareness knew this was happening, and did you come in purposely to work with this situation? Can you share that?
Well, yeah, it's a story, and okay, I'll tell that. It's about an hour-long sample if I do that. Well, in the what?
It doesn't matter.
The what?
You know, when we get to that point, if there is a denial about staying in meditation.
Well, I need to talk to you about several things yet. I need to talk to you about healing, and about the higher self, and about the actual moving into the next dimensional level. Those are the areas that I need to do. And my feeling is that maybe I should get the work over with, and then I can tell the story.
Some of us are leaving early.
Anybody care how late when you?
There's a couple of us that are leaving tonight, so.
Yeah, they're leaving at 7. You gonna leave at 7?
No, like 8, close to 8.
Well, maybe I should try to get all the informational levels in as much as possible, stuff that's really important, and then after that, well, if there's time left, we can do that. The story of me coming in here is not really crucial. It's, but I mean, I knew the situation. I was pulled, just real quickly, I was pulled here. It was Shizat, Thoth's wife, who saw the situation was having a problem as far back as about 1450, maybe 1550 BC, and contacted me and others in Melchizedek consciousness. If you want to say me, I mean, can't quite put it like that, but anyway. And I was drawn down on a consciousness level, on an awareness level, you might say, to the earth a long time ago, and was asked to help in the Akhenaten thing, not in physical form or anything else this way. It was like an interdimensional communications. And then it wasn't until the year 1819 that I stepped into the Earth's dimensional levels. And it wasn't until 1850 that they took form. But I'll have to, if we have time, I'll try to explain that. But it isn't real crucial to know that. There's other things that are more important to know that we should make sure we get in here and on this film before we go on.
It only seemed important as much as it had to be on a long time ago. You could take all that one. Yep.
Well, from some certain levels, things are spherical, and time is spherical, and you could see the future as well as the past. However, occasionally things are interjected that change future, past, present, everything, and it changes the whole nature of things. It's rare. It's really rare. This is one of those times. And but the situation could be seen. It's just like even today, in 1993, you've got a person named Bashar, who is the channel from him? Daryl what? Daryl Anka, right. And Bashar is the resultant of the Gray experiment of the middle race that was developed between us and them, and that was projected evidently over the wall. So they made it according to Bashar, which is good. I want that to happen. They made it over to the other side, and then Daryl is coming from 300 years in the future back here to this time to try to make some tiny changes in things. And so it is just simply not as straightforward and as clear as it may all appear to be. Yes?
I just have to relate this. I've been getting a lot of information that's not even hit me yet. It's just all like a bunch of symbols. It's like flashing in my head. Ever since I've seen that double helical pattern of that tree of life that you wrote up there when you first began talking about the Lucifer Rebellion, because that's the first time I've ever heard this information on the Lucifer Rebellion.
Yes.
And what's hit me then and keeps coming is that, and then you started talking about critical mass and that we have well reached the point of critical mass that is expected for the whole planet to reach another level. What keeps coming to me is that maybe there's a level far beyond what was initially expected us to go, and that there's a whole other level of critical mass that we're approaching.
This is very observant, because this is what we now think is the case.
Yeah, I'm getting that Lucifer is actually getting what he had designed to do. That plan is coming into effect in some way, in some form, some way, and I don't even know my concepts of God are expanded enough to understand this myself, but that in some form or some way there is a new God being produced.
Well, it's not a new God.
Well, like I said, I can't get the words right.
But it's we now think, see, originally when they set up the grid to just put us back onto the orbit again, their intention was just to put us back from the third to the fourth dimension, and that is all that we would do, and that was all it was planned to do, and it was all it was supposed to do. But because of this speeded up thing, that evolutionary pattern that was set in there, it threw this whole thing out, and we're going so fast. Then it looked like, at one point it looked like, well, we're going to go further than that, and then it looked like, holy cow, we're going to go up to the fifth dimension. And everybody's going, wow, fifth dimension, man, incredible. And then it looked like we were going to go into the sixth dimension, and then the seventh, and then the eighth, and then the ninth, and then the 10th, and the 11th, and the 12th. And everybody's mouth is dropping further and further and further in all of this. And then finally, just recently, I was given the instructions on how to create the group Merkaba that would extend us beyond the Great Wall. And part of the human consciousness of the Ascended Masters made it over the wall using this information. Part of our consciousness went through the entire dimensional level and over into the next octave, which is just, forget it. You can't even talk about it. It's just so outrageous. And now it's looking like we're all gone.
So the outer limits of our consciousness is already over the octave.
That's right. We've already made it. We're already over there.
And we're just getting
And Ascended Masters are going over in groups of 32 at a time instead of making one big blast to go off the Earth and send us up to the next level, what they've decided to do is to do kind of like cold fusion. They're sending out 32 members at a time all the way over to the other side of the wall, which pulls us all up further in our awareness. And they're timing these things so that at the right moment we will keep making these leaps to go over. And what's looking like now is that very soon we will make the initial stage of going from the third to the fourth dimension, but today, anyway, may change tomorrow. Today, it looks like we're going to spend about 2 years there, which is just enough time to become an adult, and then take off, go fifth, and that's it. Super streak through the dimensional levels.
So that's thanks to Lucifer.
We've
been resisting. Now we're finding out that because of that, we can move a lot further and faster than ever possible.
Well, on a more balanced way, it's really, if you have to give thanks, it's thanks to both the Dark and the White Brotherhood for their dance that they have. Because see, before Lucifer and before Jesus, there was no dance in the same way. There was a homogeneous structure. And when God polarized the two and made one on one side and one on the other side, He created a dance. And it's not a person or anything that did this. It is the very creation of the dance by God that has created this extraordinary situation that is now taking what has always been a very slow process into something that is super accelerated. Now, that not just because it's super accelerated doesn't mean that it's positive or negative, that it's good or that it's bad. It's all we can say is that it's different, definitely different. And the part about it that I'm mostly happy about is that what I can see taking place here is that it's now beyond any of the players. All the players in it, it's beyond Lucifer. It's beyond Jesus. It's beyond them all. It's beyond all of them, everybody, beyond the Melchizedeks. They're all sitting here going, they've lost control. They've lost control, really. And God has stepped in. And something greater than all the levels of life, all the hierarchy of life, something greater than this created hierarchy has stepped forth and is expressing itself. And from my point of view, I just say, go for it. Yay. Because I'm not concerned about life and death or anything else like that. I'm concerned about healing on cosmic levels. Yes.
Could this be because, this is kind of intermediate to what you mean, but that because so many people came to watch here, that they all became involved and their evolution became involved too, so that
very, very
that's why
possibly.
it's affecting such a wide.
As far as the trigger, you're probably correct, because whenever you bring your attention somewhere, that focuses energy. And I mean, like we have a little instrument that can do this. I can shine this instrument on you, and you can think about that you're in your little finger, and then you can think your attention up your arm. We could track you on a computer screen as you're moving your attention around. You could sit there and watch on the screen as you're moving your attention. Though you're moving it in your body, you can see it on the screen. So you can see that it focuses energy. And so you can imagine, I mean, that was the part that I was real intrigued about, is that all of life, God created a situation that was so interesting that all of life had to look at it. And in looking at it, quantum physics will tell you the same thing. The person who creates the experiment affects the experiment, and because by the very act of attention of looking at the experiment. And so it's a rather interesting situation that has been developed. I think it's beautiful. I think it's great.
So when the first critical mass was reached, it was no longer the situation because so many more that's why the next one had to be reached, because there were so many more people involved than originally.
Now, let me just say one more thing. This is why all the prophecies and everything that came in before 1972, and I think all of them without exception, but we'll just talk about ones that aren't quite so controversial, like Edgar Cayce, for example. He had over 12,000 predictions and was only wrong in one thing, one tiny little thing. And then after 1972, he went down. He started becoming wrong in all kinds of things. And the same way with Nostradamus. He was about 80% right until 1972, and then has fallen way off. And I think that if you start looking at all the predictions that were made prior to 1972, because it was before this thing was injected, they would have probably been right if things would have continued on, but time-space had been altered. And so now, to make a prediction now is really presumptuous, because if you really see the situation, it's moving so fast and it's going, and you can't say, well, we're here now, and look down the time tunnel and say we're going to be here real soon, because who knows? We might not even be involved in time real soon. I mean, I don't. Nobody knows. Nobody knows, and so your predictions could be anything. I'm not going to predict anything for sure, because I don't know. All I can do is when I talk about these things that we're about to talk about, I can just say what I think, what I know usually happens. And I'll keep telling you over and over and over. It doesn't have anything to do with what may happen. But what I do believe is, many part of the predictions were is that we were going to come into a very violent time. That there was going to be...
Armageddon.
Well, not even before the Armageddon, or no. Well, we were going to... two violent times. We were going to have Armageddon, and number two, we were going to have whole continents going up and down and all this kind of stuff, and mass destruction on all kinds of levels. I really seriously doubt if that's going to occur at this point, primarily because the forces of Armageddon are more closely aligned than they've ever been, though that may change, and also the fact that we are now the light is now stronger and controlling the events, where originally it was going to be that the darkness was going to be in control at the time. In other words, the chaotic aspect of ourselves. And I just think that we may find that we may create a situation that we move up into the time when the poles shift, and they will shift, I believe. But we may move into that situation with none of the normal violence that was associated with it. It may be very, very smooth. That has both a positive and negative side, too. And that is that it means we might not have any warning, or very little warning. It just may happen very, very quickly. I don't know for sure. I'll try to explain all that I can possibly explain about what I know about what may happen, but
Are the Syrians still holding the field?
They're still holding the field, yeah, which they never dreamed, on all their calculations and everything else like that, they never dreamed that they would be able to go until 1993. They just didn't, they couldn't even conceive of being able to hold that field that long.
Is it like a holographic field that one of us is really here?
It's a hologram, and they are creating a separate reality on it, and not directly connected to the actual reality outside of it, from which everyone's looking in at.
It's like a holodome.
Yeah, it's like, or the holodeck on Star Trek, that kind of thing. Much more sophisticated than even what they were conceiving of then.
So what happened to the Earth we knew of before the holodeck?
This is the Earth that we still knew of then, and these are our bodies, and they're only interfering with very subtle certain aspects of the Earth in terms of right here on the surface of the Earth. Most of the hologram is extraterrestrial and in space, protecting.
We can't do without exploding.
We can't. That's the main thing. We just aren't ready. But we will have to probably we're going to get to this place where the Earth will get strong enough, and the kinds of things that we were talking about here, where we'll become every day, and we will all be aware of that, how powerful our thoughts are and our feelings, and that they create the very light worlds that we are in. At which point, we may take the responsibility of the expanding sun, and probably experience it from the surface out, more than likely, though I don't know. I can see how that we would experience this. We would accept the experience of this, take on its effects, and go on from there. Because, see, the sun, if consciousness can tune to the heat of the sun, it isn't hot. It's just light, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. You can go right into the sun. I've done it. I've flown a ship right into the sun. I know what it is. All you got to do, and it's not just tuning the ship, everybody on it, everything. You got to tune the consciousness right to it, and you can just go right in. And the sun is not what you think. It's as infinite inside the sun as it is outside. And space is connected inside as well as outside. And the time that it takes to get from Sirius A to our sun is about 90 seconds, going inside the sun.
I don't understand why the ozone layer and the rays of the sun going to the ozone layer, why is it so harmful to us?
Well, because they're still they are allowing the program to continue on as close to possible as what would happen if nothing was going on. And so now it's up to us to try to change the programming back and revert all these patterns back.
So there's no ocean that's polluted out there? That's just a movie?
No, there is a polluted ocean out there. But because, see, the nature of the reality behind the hologram is very similar. It's also one that's a function that is really, remember, it started in nothing. It's just thoughts, it's just feelings, if you want to call it any of those things. It's psychic energy. It's the movement of spirit. It's what created the whole thing in the first place. So even what's behind what we call, if you're thinking like this is a hologram, and then what's behind there is real stuff, it isn't exactly that way. And so,
is that when when the masters say that the relative existence is an illusion? Are they referring to the hologram, or are they referring to the duality?
Most of the people who said that, and when they called it Maya, did not know or even conceive of the situation that we were in now. They were referring to the very reality itself, which is just light. It's illusion. And so what we have just done is create an illusion within an illusion.
Okay, so the illusion behind the created illusion is an illusion.
That's right.
Okay, and that illusion is the duality of the self is separate from itself, the double helix.
Oh. Yeah, I think so, from that point of view.
Okay, so when God sent Lucifer and Jesus in two separate directions, it forced people to experience the duality, and it brought all these extraterrestrials and races from all over the world to this one spot to look deep within reality in order to find its way back to God.
Maybe. I mean, I really don't know what God has in mind here. I mean, I can conceive of something that we might just be approaching something that no one has ever seen. It's not in memory banks. It's not in any of the games. It's not in anything. It's not in anything.
You said it was out of Lucifer's control. It was out of Jesus' control. But you didn't name the third one. You didn't say it was out of God.
No, it's not out of God's control. I don't think so. No, if it's out of God's control, we'd be in trouble. Because that's us on the outside of the system. But us out on the outside of the system, not outside of this system, outside of the other system, outside of the system, all the way outside the entire waveform universe and all dimensional levels, outside all the entire created infinite structure, outside of all of it. In other words, the guy watching the TV when you're watching that pattern up there, outside of that whole thing, that aspect appears to be what is interfering directly, and that's the part that it may be that we, before we created this whole thing, planted this little seed and started the whole pattern, and then at the right time, we on the other side put in the two components of the positive and negative aspects, knowing that eventually that would come down and find this little thing and do this little thing. But what the intent is beyond that, on the other side, where we sat before we came in, I can't second guess that. I don't know. I mean, I just work here. I don't. I don't have any control on those levels over there. I mean, because it is me from my point of view, but I have surrendered that to that aspect of me, and I'm here to experience what it is that I place myself into, and so. And we're all equal in this way. I just happen to have my memory at the moment. But you're all going to have your memory pretty soon too, if you don't already getting it. And at which point we all go back to one place back there. We're all the same. We're just reflections of each other. We're like mirrors.
John Fuller, whatever happened to the Merkaba that went out of control, that they were trying to get back and stabilize? And where does it exist? Is it just in another space-time continuum? And will what we're doing here eventually neutralize that?
Yeah, well, they themselves, according to the angels, will heal the situation. The Greys and secret government and all those that started that stuff and the Martians from before, that whole complex. Life always wants whoever started something to clean it up, if at all possible, so that they can learn the lesson from whatever it was that did it, rather than someone else coming. Non-interference has always been the best wisdom in all this stuff. And so, like when I saw Duncan, I saw exactly how to solve his problem. I could have probably done it in maybe 5 minutes. But they wouldn't let me touch it. And then later I asked why, and they said because they will solve their own problem right at the very, very end of this whole thing. They will figure it out. And so I let it go. This is the same way in healing when we start talking about healing. You got to ask permission and get permission from the person, and then from my way of looking, from their higher self in all these ways. And what's happening, when I used to be involved in healing, about maybe 40 or 50% of the time, at least 50% of the time, I would get a no. Don't interfere. And but about 50% of the time, I would get to go ahead. It was okay. And I've been noticing that as we become more and more evolved here, that I keep getting permission less and less and less and less and less. And now I hardly ever get permission. Hardly ever. I ask, nope, get out of the way. Because people, and I just got permission recently from one person, the first time in over a year, from this about 75-year-old man who has cataracts. And I couldn't believe that they said I could have permission to do anything like this. But generally I get an absolute no on everything, because we all have within us the ability, really have the ability to deal with a situation, whatever it is, and in the dealing with that situation, we gain our strength. It's like I had a woman, a friend of mine, who had a baby, and the baby died in her stomach. And she got an infection that went throughout her whole body, and she was going to, they gave her less than 24 hours to live. And so I thought she was going to die. And I went to her and I asked her if I could help, and she said yes. And then so I went back home to try, because so I could be quiet where I did this, because it doesn't matter where you are when you do these kind of things. And And I called her higher self in, and her higher self was very adamant for me to stay out of the way and not to help at all. I never had a higher self quite be that aggressive in that way, but made certain that I did not do a thing. And so I stepped back, and I assumed that she was going to die, because that was, I mean, it's okay to die. There's nothing wrong with dying. There's nothing wrong with that at all. There is no death. There's just transformation. It just means that person was going to leave at that time, and I thought that's what was going to happen. And everybody thought that's what was going to happen. But what did happen was she did it all by herself. She got right up to the place where she was going to die, and then it struck her that her body was light, and she just totally reversed the situation. And in like 3 days, walked out of the hospital and was really a different person. She just was completely changed from the experience. And then I saw the wisdom in why I wasn't supposed to interfere. And